Well, welcome to Black Men Speak, a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and we are in year 6. It's amazing. I really love doing this and bringing just great stories to you. But outside of our normal podcast, we are going to showcase a kind of a new series called the Pinnacle of Color. And the purpose is to celebrate, elevate, and amplify the voices of leaders, creators, and entrepreneurs of color who are redefining success on their own terms. Our purpose is to spotlight the journeys, struggles, and victories that often go unheard while equipping listeners and insights, strategies, and inspiration to reach their own pinnacle. The series is not just about storytelling, it's about shifting the narratives, breaking systemic barriers, and building blueprint for the future generations. So by highlighting diverse perspectives and lived experiences, the Pinnacle of Color are going to create a space where innovation, culture, and resilience meet. At its core, the podcast is about showing what's possible when brilliance meets opportunity and ensuring communities of color see themselves not just surviving, but thriving in the very top. So in this first episode, it's titled Breaking Generational Barriers, Rewriting the Narrative of Black Male Success. So too often, Black male success has been limited, overlooked, or defined by others. So we're going to tackle what it really means to break generational barriers and talk about how Black men are rewriting the playbook on wealth, leadership, and legacy. So this guest is actually doing those things, and we have crossed paths a long time. I was actually working in his high school and didn't know of our guest until much later when he was participating in a program that I was overseeing called Rising Tide Capital. So the fact that that path was being laid probably then. And so our guest is Al-Shakise Anderson. So his entrepreneurial journey is just more than just business. It was about creating a different identity than what a stereotypical view of Black men from Newark look like. And he was redefining what winning looks like and ensuring the next generation starts further down the field than he did. And you will see that as we talk later on. So Al-Shakise Anderson is a dynamic entrepreneur. He's a wellness advocate and a financial services professional dedicated to helping people achieve success through holistic well-being and smart financial strategies. As CEO and founder of BWS Massage Concierge, Al-Shakise specializes in bringing mobile wellness solutions, massage, stretch therapy, and adaptive wellness to corporations and home clients and adults with disabilities across New Jersey. In addition to his wellness business, Shakise is a leader in the financial services industry, mentoring agents and helping families build generational wealth through life insurance and financial literacy. His personal journey from humble beginnings to business ownership fuels his passion for leadership, community impact, and empowering others to pursue their best selves. Whether it's investing, wellness, building financial security, or leading by example. And I guess his boys call him Kise, so I know I'm one of his boys, so I'll call him Kise too. The mission is simple: serve people, create impact, and build legacy. So, Al-Shakise, welcome to the Black Men Speak podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And this is not your first time on the podcast. So you're a seasoned veteran. You know what I mean?
Hey, yes, I am. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. So let's just kick off right away. We mentioned the title of generational barrier. So when you hear that phrase, and in even breaking generational barriers, what does that mean in your own life story?
Breaking generational barriers. Wow. In business, or would you say in personal
Just
life?
in general, whatever you feel comes to mind.
Got it. One of the breaking generational barriers for me, Keith, just growing up where I come from, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, I'm proud to say, currently reside in Newark, New Jersey with my wife and son. I had to unlearn the idea that playing it safe was the best option. In my family, stability was the goal. Obviously, we were always told to get a steady job, go to school, don't take too much risks. But as an entrepreneur, I had to flip that mindset, Keith, because I learned over time, over the years, that growth comes from stepping into the unknown and just betting on yourself. And I had to realize that failure is a part of that process, so I couldn't avoid it. So that was my way of breaking a barrier, breaking that barrier when it comes to generation.
Okay, and so overall, let's go back to high school. What was it like, or what are some of the even the things views that you felt being a young Black man growing up in Newark, and then what made you decide that, like you said, the entrepreneurial path was the path you wanted to go down to kind of change the views of how people looked at you in the city?
Yes. Going back to high school, I was always a cool kid. I probably wasn't the most popular, but people knew me just based on my energy. I was always positive in a sense. But I grew up in an environment where, you had to be tough. You had to have a certain persona when you walk into a room. And I always had that in me coming from where I come from, but I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't the most talented in high school. So I had to figure my way on who I wanted to be, and what I want my legacy to be as I get older. And that's how entrepreneurship came, in a sense. I've always seen entrepreneurship in the streets, relating to drug dealers. In all honesty, I looked at them in my early stages as entrepreneurs before I knew what an entrepreneur was. But I adapted that because I knew I didn't have many talents, and all I had was hard work. And that was, I guess that was the difference for me, or the difference maker.
Okay. So you taught. So was there any specific? So yes. So you decided to take some of their, I guess, and yes, and they are kind of entrepreneurs in a sense, but of course, unfortunately, it's in a negative context. So you took, I guess, the elements of, and so estimates, knowing your customer, and knowing your customer, being able to create relationships, and you channeled that through different means. So what made you when did you decide in your life that you wanted to actually become an entrepreneur? And then I know you are, so was BWS, or was massage therapy your first initial business idea that you wanted to start? And if not, what was it? And and what made you decide to shift in a different direction?
I would say, one, having that hustler's mentality. I just knew early on that I needed to make money to support myself and my family. I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family that I could think of at the time that can, pave the way for me. So what I had was my environment, good or bad. It definitely shaped me and molded me into who I am today. In college, I think in college when I applied for college, I always wanted to study business. I just wanted to. My goal in high school was to work for a corporate 500 company, work in business. I love the idea of business, even growing up. Watching certain movies. I just wanted to be that successful businessman before I even knew what that was or what that felt like. And then years after college, when I worked in business, I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for 7 years, even after college. Started when I was an intern while in college, graduated and worked my way to the top. Once I left that job in 2013, that's when it all hit me that I need to pursue something that's a passion of mine. And during those years was fitness. So I became a fitness trainer, and I immediately created my LLC, Bodies with Staff, which is the acronym for BWS. So
Okay.
that's how it all came about. And I just hit the ground running, and then I use my natural ability, which is customer service and serving others.
Okay. So even with that, of course, entrepreneurship, it can be very challenging. And but you said you always had a positive mindset. So did you feel that was going to be the recipe for you to be successful in business, or did you feel there were some other qualities that you felt you had or you needed to become successful? And if so, what were those things?
I remember a friend said to me that when I was a trainer, he said to me, man, Kise, you got to love the business side of what you do other than just a passion. And that stuck with me because I was just focusing on fitness, taking care of people, not really understanding the business behind it. So I had that ability in adapting to people and connecting with people and building such an audience, but I didn't have the tools to really grow a business, such as being a leader. I think it starts there. When you're building a business, I learned over the years, 3 things that's important with building a business is people, processes, and systems. I lack systems, I lack processes, I was great with people. Once I learned that through experience and 100 times of failure, it started to click for me, and that's when the business owner in me was born.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Those processes and systems, we can have a tendency to kind of leave that part out, and especially if we are very, extroverts and people, or we're one of the types that really believe in our product and really love kind of, I guess, showcasing that. The other part can be really challenging. So let's kind of shift gears back a little bit. And I'd love to just to get your take on, how do you feel society traditionally has defined success for Black men, and what's missing from that definition? And this is primarily probably helpful for any of the young people that might be listening today.
Society for Black men in business. Wow. One, I'm a proud Black man in business. So I felt like I've overcame that stigma of what it looks like and what it means, just from my community alone. I always believe if others from my community can champion what I do, I've overcame that stigma. But to answer your question, Keith, I had to navigate the world where opportunities weren't handed out. It wasn't as fair, Give some examples: access to capital for a Black man, credibility. Those things didn't come easy. I had to earn it 10 times over. I faced people doubting my capabilities before they even gave me a chance. But I learned quickly that just being consistent, professional, and delivering results will open doors, even when there's bias in the room, when they try to close those doors. Another barrier was a lack of information, especially in our community. Financial literacy and business, like mentors, just wasn't there. That wasn't available for me,
Mm.
you know. I had to fight through that gap, learn the hard way, and then commit to teaching others what I learned, so that way they don't have to start from scratch as a Black man.
That's interesting that you say that. So were you saying there were no really mentors you could actually talk to, or did you try to talk to mentors and you couldn't, and they wouldn't help you? Because I guess that's two different things. So I mean,
Correct.
I know there are programs out there such as Rising Tide, and they do have mentors, and SCORE is another one where, but so was that the case, or was the fact that you were kind of and I hate to say dismissed, but overlooked because they didn't feel that you were serious about what you were trying to do?
I guess I answer that question from a point of view when I was in college or in high school.
Okay.
Programs like Rising Tide, you know, has came about or introduced to me, I would say, in the last 5+ years. But prior to that, my mentors and leaders were people that were from the neighborhood. They probably didn't have that business structure, but they were mentors, based on helping me become a young Black man, and just, you know, pointing out some of the landmines that most Black men constantly step on all the time, especially in my community. Selling drugs, violence, gangs, going to prison, things like that, addiction. So I had to overcome those struggles. And then once I successfully removed myself, then I was able to clearly identify who would be a mentor. But mentors don't just come to you. Honestly, you got to go seeking it. I do give credit to a mentor. This was years ago when I was in high school, maybe middle school, was Cory Booker. You know, whether people were a fan of him or not, before he went on his political race, he was a mentor in our community where he used to come and pick young boys from the community and take us on trips and try to show us things outside of what we're used to. And that right there changed my perspective because, you know, I realized it was a bigger world than what I've always seen and what I was taught.
Yeah, shout out to Cory Booker. That's great. So in our communities, what do you think it's harmful to Black male entrepreneurs? Because I'm sure you probably have mentored some or have seen up and coming entrepreneurs that have sought your advice. And what are some of the pitfalls that you think they have seen or witnessed, but they were unable to avoid?
The information, because you got to go out and seek the information. Some people I came across, you know, they want the information, but they're not willing to put in the work to make it work for themselves, right? So I think that is a common pitfall, is lack of information and realizing the resources that we do have today that we didn't have in the past. Access to capital, it always goes back to money, not having that foundation. For someone like myself, I come from a very humble beginnings where money wasn't a thing, right? We just had to go out and hustle to make ends meet. And I want to also give credit to my mom, because in all honesty, she was the first entrepreneur that I seen. Because my mom, other than selling drugs, she used to sell clothes, and I used to be 5 years old on her hip, going with her to all different parts of community in Newark where she was selling clothes, and she made a lot of money doing so, where I used to count the money for her at the end of the night. that fueled me because I didn't. I think that was the beginning stages of learning what it takes to be a hustler and then one day become an entrepreneur. So I did want to give credit to my mom because she was the very first.
Right. I'm sure she broke off a couple dollars, you know, so there you go. So before to get into more deeper questions, tell me about BWS Massage Concierge. You know, what type of business is it, and how do you serve the community?
So great question. So BWS Massage Concierge is a wellness company where we focus on massage therapy and now stretch therapy. I started this business over 10 years ago, where I was a trainer. Then I later became a massage therapist. 10 years later, we now have a team of therapists that are contracted under us. And our goal is to focus on mobile wellness, corporate events for companies that want to invest in their employees, and now adaptive wellness for adults with disabilities in the state of New Jersey. So BWS, we bring that a wellness piece, that self-care, where in my community, that wasn't a necessity. Most people looked at massage therapy, and still to this day, as a luxury, where it's more of a necessity. It's something that we all need in order to be our better selves. So that's what BWS represent. And I'm just excited to still be on this journey 10 plus years later and still growing and still learning.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched upon that, because that was the one question I wanted to ask you. Getting that license, because I think you have to get a license to be a massage therapist, correct? Were
Yes.
you one of the only like Black men in the room? And if you were, what was that like? Because just the, you know, massage therapy is kind of an intimate thing. So
Yes.
I'd love to know, you know, what you felt, or were there any kind of like a story that you could tell that really not necessarily frustrated you, because, you know, you were trying to be, you know, a business owner, not what massage therapy could be construed as, you know.
Correct. It's funny you say that, because yes, I remember being in class, March of 2013. There was about 35 students. Out of the 35 students, there had to be under 5 of those students were male, and only 2 of us were Black. So it was very uncomfortable at first. And I remember my teacher at the time, I forget what class she was teaching. She said, massage therapy, this industry is predominantly female based, more female than male, and more clients more comfortable with a female therapist, where most males aren't successful in this industry. That stood out to me. Yeah, it scared me. It definitely scared me, but it was one of those things where I just had to learn to be uncomfortable. And I said, I'm gonna change this statistic, because where I come from, no one knows of massage therapy or massage therapists. Massage, like you mentioned, was always looked at as a, you know, as something that was sensual in a sense, and not more so on the wellness scale. So I think that was the reason why I continued with it. So I remember being in that classroom, just unsure how far I can take this thing. I was in a state of mind where I just left my corporate job, which was enterprise, that I worked for 7 years out of college. I thought that was the end all be all, because I'm in corporate. I became a business manager. I had a company car. I was making close to 6 figures. I was doing well in my late 20s. But when I left that job, my income went from 95,000 to 30,000 as a fitness trainer. So that was a big drop. But that motivated me to make this happen. And when I graduated, I was able to bring over my fitness clients over to the massage side. And I just stuck with it.
Awesome. And so the fact that you actually had to, I guess, and I would just use this, being kind of an innovator in your community, how did you attract clients? What, especially since you had to actually change the mindset of people that, this is a wellness thing. This isn't a sensual thing. So how did you do that? And what were some of the things you had to do to get clients to, I guess, to trust what you were doing and create that relationship?
I didn't realize that I was good at building relationships. I just knew I was a good person. I had a kind heart. So I utilized at that time, social media, of course, was a thing, right? Instagram. I used to put paid ads out there of me doing massages with certain celebrities or influencers at the time. Once that one video got traction, my DMs and my messages started to grow where people wanted to book me directly. Yes, I was talented. I learned this. I had a really good skill set. On top of that, I'm a good looking brother. I presented myself well, but I always stayed professional. And I think that was the difference between me and others. My content was more on wellness, self-care. It was bigger than just a massage and me putting my hands on an individual. So I seen that as an opportunity that most people weren't in. I realized wellness should be accessible to all. Companies coming from a corporate environment, employees are stressed out, parents are overwhelmed. And I just wanted to create a 5-star business where wellness was at the top of that. And it was hard for people to say no. So that right there was the difference maker.
Yeah, people are more stressed out than ever. You should be completely busy. I'm amazed I'm able to even talk to you right now. So let's kind of, for those that may be interested in going into entrepreneurship, and since you're kind of on the front lines, you talked about mentorship as being a barrier, but what about the access to capital? You also mentioned that as being one of the challenges, or at least the things that you had to work through. What are in regards to access to capital, what challenges that you've seen that could be helpful for any upcoming entrepreneurs that they need to know, and how did you overcome that?
It's still a work in progress for me when it comes to access to capital, but just to take it a step back, the advice I would give new entrepreneurs is 2 things. I know we mentioned it earlier: is find a mentor and stay consistent in what is it that you want to achieve in your business. Now, mentorship is everything. I consider you, Keith, as a mentor, just based on our connections, right? And the much advice you gave me and my wife, my entire family, when it comes to business and growing our business. Where I come from, you don't know what you don't know. And I say that to most entrepreneurs. You don't know what you don't know. I used to beat myself up like, man, I wish I knew how to fix my credit years ago, or I knew how to apply for this loan or this grant. These are things I didn't know, but a good mentor can save you years of trial and error. And consistency matters because results just don't happen overnight. So in both my wellness and insurance business, I've seen the people who stuck with the activity when it comes to, hustling and going out there and building their business, networking, showing up for clients and serving. That for me, that's what it takes to win long term. In essence, to capital, you got to be out there. You got to network with the right people. All it takes is that one person to say yes, that will open doors for you, that will give you an opportunity to reach that capital. So I'm still learning, and I just pray that others continue to do the same.
Yes. And just to go back a little bit, so you said being consistent in your business. So since usually massage therapy is something that, for the most part, it's kind of client driven. The client usually has to seek out that kind of service. But how have you kind of flipped the script so people are aware of, the services that you offer?
Powerful, right? Because being a business owner, I think we all are familiar with the pandemic. Things like that. When we have an economical crash or anything in the world that does exist, there are times that as a business owner, you got to learn to adapt. I was forced to adapt where our in-home business has dropped significantly. That's when I decided, okay, I want to now focus on corporate massage. How can I get into these companies and offer our services where we're getting paid more, but at the same time, we're serving more people? That was something that I was able to adapt into and just bring our same model when it comes to our objective as a business for BWS. Another was now adapting, working with individuals with disability in New Jersey, who, in all honesty, they all need it most. Once we were able to become a community vendor in the state of New Jersey, now my services are not just being offered to the everyday individual. Now we're able to work with companies and adults with disability that have a Medicaid provider that really need our services. So that's how we were able to adapt in those three pillars. And that's those corporate and adaptive wellness is the driving factor for BWS currently. So you just got to be willing to adapt and constant research in order to grow.
That's a great word, adaptability, because our worlds are changing just so quickly. I mean,
Always.
Just last year they kind of mentioned AI as some possibility, and now it's kind of just it's everywhere. And so you really have to be on your toes and figuring out how you can change in business in order to stay current. So if you were, let's just say you were mayor, or you had some prominent leadership in the city of Newark, and you were really working with Shakise of high school days. Would you feel entrepreneurship is still a viable option? And then how would you use that to help break the cycles of poverty and create wealth?
Absolutely, especially now more than ever, because like you said, AI is a thing where people are just losing their jobs. I know I said earlier where, we grew up in a community where we were told to go to school, get your education, go to college, find a decent job. I'm not against college. I support college 100% because college changed my life. It removed me from an environment, put me in a new environment where I was uncomfortable, and I just learned to adapt in that environment. And I did okay, right? I survived, I like to say. But if I was in that political space, speaking to a younger me in high school in 2025, I encourage entrepreneurship because most people have all these great ideas when they're at that age, they're young. And we just got to teach them a foundation of how to turn that idea into a business where they first, it has to be a passion, turn into a business where they can make money. Once they see profit, now that's an opportunity to potentially grow that business and offer opportunities to others that may want to join that vision. So I believe entrepreneurship should be a curriculum in most schools, even in colleges.
Right.
We have to teach our students how to be business owners, even if they decide not to. Because most of college is teaching you how to be an employee. So I had this conversation with my 16-year-old who is soon to go to college, who's currently in high school. And I said, son, each year you should just focus on learning one new skill. Skills is what's going to pay you for a lifetime. You can be the smartest in the world. You can go to the best school in the world. But in today's world, if you don't have a skill, it's very hard to make money and sustain. So that is something I will encourage a younger me if I was in that political space. And entrepreneurship is certainly a vehicle for that.
Wow, that's a great segue to that, because I was going to ask you that. How do you think you would ensure success with the next generation So I'll kind of pivot a little bit. Have you actually taken him to work with you, or on a business call or anything like that? And how did he react? Because I know your son, and he has a different talent. He's an actor, and so yeah, how did he feel like being in that situation of being like I guess a boss?
My son is a unique kid, even at a very young age. And I think when I became an entrepreneur, he was born in 2015. He was only 2 years old. So, he's seen the struggle from trying to build a business, getting up every day, going. I would assume I was going to work. I was just going to build my business, networking, and trying to find ways to really grow and find clients. I remember bringing my son Caden to massage school with me. He was with me in a few classes, just sitting next to me. He was 3 years old, 4 years old. And a lot of people took a liking to him because he was a very cool, calm kid where he'll sit there quietly as if he knew what was happening. So I remember bringing him to clients' houses where he'll sit in the living room and I'll go do a massage and come out and say, "Come on, son, we're ready to go." So he's seen my wife and I really grow our business. He can probably pitch our business better than us, in all honesty, because he grew up in a household where his mom and dad were entrepreneurs, and we didn't keep it a secret. We brought him with us. We kept him in it. And even today at 16, I was just in a classroom with my son trying to learn a new skill. So that foundation was huge for me, because I guess me being a father now, that's something I always wanted as a dad that I didn't get. So I'm able to provide that now.
Great. Fantastic. Well, one of the things which I think I heard you say is comfortability in our communities. And we have the kind of this conversation all the time, and I'd love to get your take. Sometimes can get the sense that certain areas are growing, like the downtown. They're growing and they're innovating and changing, but our communities seem like they're still the same. Do you get that sense, or do you feel that it's changing as well?
That's a great question, because things are always changing, right?
Let me preface that, changing for the better.
Correct. Things are always changing for the good or bad, but yes, in our community, especially downtown Newark area, I believe things are changing for the better. But there are a lot of people that just don't want to accept change. Again, I come from an environment where changing was not normal. It's like you were a real person. I'm a real dude because I didn't change. I still live with the same principles that I was taught and raised on. I agree with that, but at some point you have to change, because there's no evolution without change, right? So things are changing for the better in the city of Newark, but if people don't change, it's hard for them to even recognize what's changing around them. So that mindset is still a thing, especially where I come from. And that's just something that at some point we got to realize. If we don't change or want to change or want to learn or do better, we're dying. You know what I mean? And I look at it, I'm a student of, I always want to learn new things. So that way I can stay ahead, but yeah.
And that's great that you said that. So how could we help our communities to take on that mindset of changing and learning new things? Because like you said, oh no, I've kept it real. I hadn't changed, but in the kind of the backdrop is that you're holding yourself back because you're not making yourself uncomfortable, as you said earlier. So how could we do more of that?
I don't want to keep saying but I was guilty of always trying to change those around me. When I accomplished something, I always wanted to bring people with me that were my age, if not older, because that was just my loyalty of where we come from. I wanted better, and I want better for my brother.
So
But then
was there a pushback when you tried to do that?
yes, and I finally had a sense of clarity that constant pushback causes tension, where whether it's enviness or dislike. And I realized I can't change a grown man. They got to want it for themselves. So I put that energy into my own son. And I think to answer that question, in order for that to happen, we got to start with the youth. We got to start with their children and plant that seed early by making sure we change the future of our children and implement and show them and give them resources where they can someday want more for themselves. But me trying to change the brother that I came up with every day, I will always lend out my hand, but at some point that gets tiring, where it's exhausting when they're constantly pushing back, and I'm trying to pull you up. At some point, I'm gonna fall back down, and I've had many times. So I believe if you want change, you'll go seek it. And I always make myself available for those I love and care for. But I'm not reaching out anymore. You got to reach out to me. But your children, I certainly will want to, be presence for that, because I think the future is in our children.
Right. Okay. So, and that is powerful. And I mean, I know, and that's probably another story. I mean, because we've been talking about working with the young generation forever, and we still keep saying the same thing. So I don't know what that is, but we won't approach that. So looking forward, or kind of in the future, what kind of collaborations do you feel that you'll need to make in order to, I guess, move your business forward, or where you want to go in the future?
Collaboration is key. Absolutely. I just want my businesses to be recognized for its service and quality in the hearts and minds of those we serve. So I'm always looking to collaborate with other entrepreneurs and business owners. I have a few collaborations currently happening as we speak. I believe collaboration over competition. There was a time where everybody was just being competitive. Like we're all come from humble beginnings, and we're all trying to learn this new skill and grow as an entrepreneur, whatever that means for that individual. But people were competing with each other, and I'm like, how are we competing? We're not even in the same space, So let's collaborate, because if we can collaborate, we can actually offer more and be stronger together. So for BWS, collaboration means collaborating with companies like Audible, like MLB. These are companies I'm currently working with today. Just being able to collaborate and offer a wellness service that helps them and their employees. Collaborate with the state of New Jersey as a community vendor. Now being able to offer our services to adults with disabilities. I come from an environment with people who had disabilities, and the family didn't have the resources or knew where to go to even realize there are resources for that individual. We just always seen that individual in the hood who had a mental disability. I had an uncle who had a mental disability that never got the real help or financial support that the state was offering. Other communities knew about this stuff, but we didn't. So collaboration is key. In order to grow, you got to collaborate, and that's where it starts.
And that's interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned the disabled community, and that's not something you necessarily would think about. So how does massage therapy or stretch therapy, I'm not sure which one you utilize, helps the disabled community, and how do they feel, or what are some of the benefits of utilizing a service such as yours?
Absolutely. Well, first, wellness. I think wellness is deserving to all. Everybody should have access to wellness. So for an individual, we typically will sit down with that individual over a virtual call and do an in-home visit to make sure our services align with their wellness goals. Some of the individuals, or most, are independent. They either live on their own, but they might have been diagnosed with autism, cognitive disorders, or cerebral palsy. So once we find a way to work with that individual, massage and stretch therapy is a great asset for them, because they have all these different physical and mental conditions where a massage and stretch therapy can help relieve some of those stress and tension points, where before they didn't even realize they can even have access to this service. Families thought they had to pay out of pocket, where now they realize that their state budget covers these services to make sure they're getting the resources on a weekly or monthly basis. So once we got into this field, we realized, man, there's not many others like us in this industry. How can we really grow our brand to showcase families that are struggling with a young adult at home with mental or physical disabilities? How can we offer our services to them? So I think massage and stretch goes a long way. As I always say to the family, our goal isn't to heal their disability. It's just to make sure that they're getting the services consistently, which will help with certain aspects, as they get older.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. So lastly, as a personal question, what barrier do you feel that you've broken in your own life, and what narrative do you feel you're rewriting right now?
When I think about barriers, I think about cycles, Keith. Cycles of financial struggle where I come from, limited access, lack of exposure to opportunities that can change a family's trajectory. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of those examples other than the norm, that was in front of me, the drug dealers that were entrepreneurs. That was what I seen, right? But there was always a pro and con to that, because we all know what that trajectory looks like. And I lost more than a dozen of friends due to where we come from because of that. So I always, even though I partaked in that, I adapted or made a transition that I wanted more for myself, and I didn't want to be labeled just based on where I come from. So as a Black man in business, I had to navigate this world where opportunities weren't always handed out, whether it was fair or not. Opportunities weren't as common growing up in the early 2000s. Like I mentioned earlier, access to capital, credibility, those things don't come as easy. So I had to earn it over and over. But another barrier, like I said before, was lack of information in our communities. Financial literacy and business mentorship wasn't always available. So I'm still fighting through that gap. I had to learn the hard way and then commit to teaching others what I learned, so they don't have to go through that or step on that landmine. I believe in it, truly believe in it.
Well, Al-Shakise, this has been great. Always, I consider you one of our pillars in our community that's offering a service that's not readily available in our communities. So for any individuals listening, how can they take advantage of your services and support you in your work?
Absolutely. Well, again, my company is BWS Massage Concierge. You can always visit our website, which is bwsmassage.com, whether you're looking for an in-home massage, whether it's a birthday or you just want to book something for your spouse. I have a team of excellent therapists in New Jersey. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, which has been huge for us. And my second business is called Anderson Agencies. We are in financial services where we're contracted under a major company called Globe Life, where we work directly with union members and people in the community. So me getting into that field was the financial side, because I believe in generational wealth, which is something that wasn't common for where I come from, and teaching people the importance of life insurance, health insurance, and many other benefits goes a long way. So you can follow me on any of those platforms. I'll be more than happy to share some information, or even give some advice, or even give some no-cost benefits that my company allows me to give for the financial aspect. But yep, that's my information. Again, my name is Al-Shakise Anderson, and you can follow us on any of those platforms.
Great. Al, or Kise, I'm sorry, Kise, because that's what they call you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Keith. I appreciate it.
All right, a few minutes. Well, this series, this Pinnacle series, is really important to me. I'm glad that Kise was able to be on today. It's because of the fact that not only that he has a wonderful business, but he's actually has broken barriers, and he's changed the narrative of what it's like growing up as a Black male in the city of Newark that's not an entertainer or an athlete. And he said that from the beginning, that wasn't his lane, but he's really done an exceptional job, not only for his son and the youth around him, but just his entire family and his community. So please follow the Black Men Speak podcast for additional stories that we will have coming up. It's going to be a great series. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.